Welcome, if you dare, to a night where the veil between worlds grows thin, a night when shadows stretch and whispers carry on the wind. Gather close and listen to tales that chill the bone and linger in the mind long after the last candle flickers out. These are not just stories. They are echoes from the dark corners of our world, waiting to be heard. Prepare yourself, for once you invite them in, they may never truly leave. It began when Sarah inherited her grandmother's old Victorian house. It stood on a quiet street, steeped in history, and felt unnervingly silent from the moment she stepped inside. A silence that seemed to hold its breath. From that first day, a feeling settled over her. The distinct prickling sensation of being watched. The house itself seemed to sigh and groan, sounds she initially dismissed as the natural settling of an old structure. But they were different. Then came the whispers. Faint at first, like distant static, indistinct and easily ignored. They seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the house, from within the walls themselves. Sarah tried to tell herself it was just her imagination playing tricks in the quiet. But the whispers grew. They became more frequent, more insistent, weaving through the silence. Sometimes they were mournful, like a sigh of sorrow. Other times, they held a chilling, gleeful edge. And then, they began to call her name. Drawn by a morbid curiosity she couldn't explain, Sarah pressed her ear against a section of the wall in the main hall. The whispers intensified, surging forward. They coalesced, sharpening into a single, horrifyingly clear sentence. "We're still here," they breathed, waiting. Terror seized her. She tried to flee, to escape the suffocating presence, but the whispers followed. They echoed in every room, clinging to her like a shroud. They were inescapable. Desperate, Sarah delved into the house's history. Old records, newspaper clippings, dusty journals. She unearthed a tragedy buried deep within the past. A family, dead within these very walls, over a century ago. Their spirits, she realized with a sickening certainty, were trapped. Bound to the house, unable to move on. And now, they had a new guest. A new focus for their eternal, silent vigil. Sarah knew she couldn't stay. The house was not hers. It belonged to them. But leaving proved impossible. The whispers claimed her, seeping into her dreams, invading her waking thoughts. She felt her grip on reality loosening. The last time anyone saw Sarah, she was sitting in the living room, a vacant smile on her face. They say the walls around her seemed to subtly shift, to lean inward. The house had finally, completely, taken her. It was late on Halloween night. Mark and Emily were driving home, the road ahead dark and empty. A sudden, torrential downpour began, drumming against the car roof, reducing visibility to mere feet. Through the sheets of rain, they saw a figure on the side of the road. A young woman, drenched and shivering, huddled against the storm. Her face was obscured by the shadows and the driving rain. Despite the late hour and the eerie circumstances, they pulled over. Mark rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" he called out. The woman didn't speak, didn't even nod. She simply opened the back door and got in. Her presence in the car was immediate and unsettling. An unnatural cold radiated from her, cutting through the car's heater. Mark glanced in the rearview mirror. She sat perfectly still, a silent, unmoving shape in the back. Then Mark noticed something peculiar. Her shadow, cast by the dashboard lights, was moving. It wasn't just the gentle sway of the car. The shadow was contorting, twisting into grotesque, impossible shapes. It seemed to mimic their movements, but with a sinister, mocking glee. He pointed it out to Emily, his voice tight with unease. Emily gasped, turning quickly. But when she looked directly, the shadow appeared normal, a still outline against the seat. The woman in the back remained motionless, staring blankly ahead. The rain outside intensified, and the cold inside the car deepened. Mark risked another glance in the mirror. The shadow was twisting again, writhing like something in agony, or perhaps something hungry. Shadowy fingers seemed to stretch out, long and claw-like, reaching towards Emily's seat. A silent, terrifying lunge. Mark slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the wet road. "Get out!" he screamed, turning around. But the back seat was empty. The woman was gone. The only evidence she had ever been there was a single muddy footprint pressed into the fabric of the seat. A lingering, chilling presence remained in the air, a cold that had nothing to do with the rain outside. Seeking a true Halloween thrill, a group of friends decided to visit a place whispered about in hushed tones. An abandoned playground on the edge of town, rumored to be haunted by the spirits of children. It was overgrown, the metal structures rusted and decaying. A thick, unnatural stillness hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. It felt less like a place of play, and more like a forgotten tomb. Amidst the decay, they noticed something strange. A single swing set, perfectly intact, its paint still vibrant, and it was moving, gently swaying back and forth, as if someone had just stepped off. There was no wind. They approached cautiously, drawn by the impossible movement. The swing continued its slow, rhythmic arc, as if occupied by an invisible presence. It was unsettling, deeply wrong. Ben, the daredevil of the group, scoffed, trying to mask his unease. "Just the wind," he declared, though they all knew it wasn't. He walked up to the swing and, with a bravado none of them felt, sat down. The moment his weight settled on the seat, the swing stopped dead. An abrupt, unnatural halt. Ben grinned nervously, pushing off with his feet. The swing began to move again. But this time, it didn't just sway gently. It moved faster, higher, gaining momentum with each arc. Ben's grin faded, replaced by a look of surprise, then fear. He felt a sudden, intense cold beside him on the swing. A whisper, cold and dry, brushed against his ear, though he couldn't make out the words. Ben tried to stop to drag his feet, but the swing wouldn't slow. It seemed to have a will of its own. His friends watched in horror from the side. Ben's face contorted, pure terror etched into his features. The swing continued to gain speed, soaring higher and higher with impossible force. It reached the apex of its arc, almost touching the crossbar above. Then, with a sickening metallic crack, the chain snapped. Ben was flung upward, vanishing into the darkness above the playground. His friends screamed, turning and fleeing the haunted place, never looking back. Behind them, the empty swing set swayed gently back and forth, waiting. Thank you for watching.